Okay, so obviously all of you are probably here to at least to agree to learn more about your technique or to improve your technique. So it's like a big thing, but I think there's like a few things that are like sort of requirements. Like if we don't actually talk about like what technically you can improve, this is sort of like, this is how you go about improving your technique. Do we have any ideas of what might pop up here? Like if you're like, let's not even think about like snatch or clean and jerk. Like, Abby, you want to get better at throwing darts, right? You want to improve your dart throwing technique. You're just like in your basement every night, right? What would be a good idea? It's like, hey, you got a dartboard and you want to get better at, like, what would you do?
Having visuals.
Like visualizing it?
No, like a video of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Video yourself and like do technique review. Yeah, so you can see yourself. It's probably a good idea.
Every day.
You practice it. Shocker, right? You throw some darts, right? You probably wouldn't just be like, there's my dartboard.
I'm gonna get good at that.
See you Friday, for Big Friday, yeah. Yeah, you'd go down and you throw darts. Probably a lot, right? Again, if the only goal is to improve your technique and not necessarily thinking about it as much of like a strength thing, obviously throwing darts is not the same as snatch, right? However, if you think about it in that sense, it's like you're gonna do it, and you're gonna probably do it a lot. Okay. What else could we recommend to Abby in her dart throwing?
Find somebody who's great at throwing darts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get a whole lot better if you're like next to this famous dart guy or gal. Yeah.
You could be like me. I study Maddie Rogers movements. Like, I mean, literally anytime she posts anything,
Yeah.
like watch it and rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it. And then I'm in my living room with a piece of PVC, like trying to look like Maddie Rogers. And
Yeah, but like that's just like being like a student of whatever game you're playing, right? So it's like,
it's the same way when
and that's different than being like a fan, in my opinion. Like you could be a fan of CrossFit or weightlifting and you're like following all the athletes and what they're doing really closely, and that's not gonna help your performance. And that's okay if that's just like your thing, right? But if your goal is to perform at your best, then it's like, then you should be more of a student of like, how are they moving? How am I moving? And then maybe really only try to like emulate the people who sort of have your proportions, your build, your age, your whatever, right? So you're basically Maddie Rogers.
like a drunken.
Yeah, but no, that's a really good point. Like, again, if somebody was like pro dart, they're like 8 feet tall and they're like hands like at the dartboard when they throw, maybe Abby shouldn't really try to emulate how they throw darts, right?
It's just a constant study of like technique, of like looking at people who are the best of like what I want to be good at, and then just looking and just studying what they do. Like even just like how they mobilize. Like I take that seriously. So like that for me is like how I learn to develop farther, because I'm a remote athlete for the team that I'm with.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I think a good chunk of this definitely falls on the athletes. So in my mind, you gotta have consistent exposure, which is just like how frequently you're actually doing the thing. Like if you're like really focused on my snatch as this cycle coach and you snatch like once a week, like if you snatch 0 times a week before, you'll probably get a little better at snatching, right? But if you snatch once a week forever and you're just continuing to snatch once a week, or like double unders, like they come up, maybe twice a month in class, right? It's like, if that's all the time you ever practice them, you're probably not going to get better at them. So I also think this is a matter of like, it might mean for some people like cutting out other stuff, right? So like, obviously, I think this is probably a little bit less for like weightlifting, but especially in CrossFit where there is so many things. Like if you want to get better at weightlifting for CrossFit, then it's like you might have to pull back on something else that you're doing so that you have enough bandwidth that you can actually take that on. So just a matter of actually doing it, right? And then when you do it, thinking about accumulating quality reps. So we can think of that as volume, right? But I probably wouldn't think about it that way when you're actually doing it, right? Like the coach might think about the volume that they're giving you of like, okay, this is how many working sets they have. This is how many reps they're hitting above this percentage in a week, whatever. However, as the athlete actually doing it, you just need to focus on let's make this next set look beautiful, right? And if you do that, this is probably, if you are accumulating volume, it's probably not super intense, it's not super heavy, it's not really high percentage stuff. So it's like, you should be able to make it look pretty. So also, if you make it look pretty, that's like the best way to make it like the least amount of wear and tear on your joints, to make it the most effective thing that you can do for yourself, to continue to actually have the opportunities to have quality down the road as well. So making sure that you're getting frequent exposures, making sure that you're actually doing quality reps, and then basically giving things that need attention, right? And carving out time for that, where you set it aside and make sure that you actually do that. So in other words, like if you're always missing your jerks out in front and every time you go to jerk, you just go heavy, it's probably never gonna get any better. So you need to make sure that like you give that the special attention that it needs, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take some extra sets at the beginning to do these assistance drills that help me feel really good when I actually go to lift. And then also I can do things around that to actually kind of help support that specific limitation that I'm dealing with. So for example, if it is like a jerk, like you could say like, okay, I'm gonna do more tricep and delt work than I would probably, other people are doing, just because it allows me to keep moving. Again, how I would probably think about this and like developing somebody's limitations, there's like drills that you could do, which again, if it is someone who, they're dealing with like a kind of a crappy overhead position in their snatch, for example, they can do drills where it's like the stuff we did today, where it's like behind the neck presses or even behind the neck push presses, right? Where you're kind of finishing in that nice position over top of like the base of your neck. You could actually develop the position itself. So doing holds, doing things that are gonna be like straight arm pressing. So like Turkish get-ups, could even be like simple as like plank holds, things like that. Again, anything where it's like completely locked out elbow. And when you do that, it allows you to focus on like one thing at a time, like one element of the bigger system.